What is an HSA? Hi, this is Kathy Bukowski. I'm the owner of CB Health Insurance. In today's video, we're going to answer that question. What is an HSA? Who can have one? What can the money be used for? And what are the other rules I need to know about with regards to HSAs? Let's start by defining HSA. HSA stands for Health Savings Account. It's a bank account. And if we go into the history, it was first established back in 2003. It was part of the Medicare Prescription Drug Improvement and Modernization Act. And well, it didn't have a lot to do with Medicare per se. Prior to this, there were MSAs, medical savings account, but they were only available to those that were self-employed or small business owners who had less than 50 employees. There were a lot of restrictions. So when they put this in, they did a couple of things. They replaced the old MSA and said, we're going to have HSAs, and we're going to define who can have one. Both individuals and employers can offer them. And we're also going to make available an MSA, a medical savings account, on the Medicare side. So there are some plans that do offer that, but we're not going to go over that today. We're going to talk about the HSA specifically. So what is an HSA? It's a bank account, a health savings account specifically set up, and you can make tax deductible contributions to this bank account, right? They go in and you can deduct it from your taxes. It grows tax deferred, and that money can be used in that account. There is an annual limit on the contribution, but the money that you have in there you can use for unreimbursed medical expenses. What is an unreimbursed medical expense? It's things that you pay that are not covered by your health insurance, medical expenses, right? And so I often refer to the HSA bank account as a medical IRA, because that's kind of what it is. You know, you're deducting, there's an annual limit, what you can contribute, you're deducting the money that you contribute, it's growing tax deferred, and oh, by the way, you can use this tax free. It's kind of, but let's talk about who can have one. Not everybody can have one. First and foremost, you must be enrolled in a high deductible health plan. HDHP. What is a high deductible health plan? Well, the government actually established this and said it has to look like this, right? It has to have a minimum deductible and a maximum out of pocket per person and per family. It cannot have what I refer to as any first dollar benefits, a doctor copay or a prescription copay, right? Where you go to the doctor and you pay a copayment, the insurance company picks up 100% of that visit, but it's not subject to the deductible. A high deductible health plan / HSA qualified medical plan cannot have a doctor copay or a drug card. Now, it can have a copay after you meet the deductible, and there are some plans out there now that have started to introduce copays on prescription coverage once that deductible is met. However, a high deductible health plan, HSA qualified medical plan, everything is subject to the deductible, right? You have to meet this big, large deductible. Remember, the government's giving you, well, one, you're supposedly saving premiums on your health care because you're taking a high deductible. And two, the government is giving you a tax break and allowing you to make tax deductible contributions. So they want you to self-insure that first deductible amount. There is one exception on this rule, and that is that a high deductible health plan can cover, not subject to the deductible, can cover preventative, and most do. So what is preventative? Pap smear mammograms, colorectal screening, annual exams for adults and children, and things like that. So there is a list of things they can cover at 100% for free, not subject to the deductible. Outside of that, if you're going to the doctor for any reason, having tests done, if you have a cold, you're paying 100% of that office visit until that deductible is met. The one thing I will caution everybody here is just because you're enrolled in a plan that has a deductible that is large, maybe $2,500, and there is no doctor copay, doesn't mean it's necessarily a high deductible health plan and HSA qualified. And I caution you because there are plans that actually exist that look like an HSA that are not designated HSA. How do you know? The materials that an employer gets from their broker, they should designate which ones are the HSAs. Unfortunately, I don't think it says that on the summary of benefits, but it should say it on the materials that you get from your employer or broker in the case of an employer. So what can the funds in this HSA bank account be used for? We talked about unreimbursed medical, anything that is subject to the deductible, and after the deductible, any co-insurance or co-payments that you pay out of pocket. Those are all eligible expenses. What else is? Dental, vision. Now, if you don't have dental or vision, all the expenses that you pay for dental and vision should be covered or reimbursable. You can use the money and to reimburse yourself tax-free. But if you have dental or vision insurance, it's usually not covering all your dental services at 100%. You're subject to a deductible, co-insurance, and whatever. All of those are eligible. Also, chiropractic, acupuncture, and some, they added this later, over-the-counter, OTC, right? It's not a prescription, it's over-the-counter. What are we talking about? Allergy medications, cold and flu, ointments, anything to kind of treat your ailments. What's not covered are over-the-counter that's just for daily care, shampoos, deodorant, lotions, things like that, those are not covered. Also not covered, health club memberships. People ask us about health club memberships and massages. Can I use the money in my HSA bank account to get a massage? The answer is no, you can't get reimbursed. Cosmetic surgery. So how do you know what is and isn't covered? Well, the IRS publishes a list every year. We'll make it available here. But there's another resource, HSA bank account, HSA Bank out of Wisconsin. They have been doing this since the beginning of time. They have a fabulous website, www.hsabank.com. They're a great reference as well for what is and isn't covered. On to number 4. What are the other important rules that I need to know? Well, first and foremost, we talked about you have to be enrolled in a high deductible health plan in order to open and make contributions to an account. What happens if you leave that high deductible health plan? You don't have to close the account, but you can no longer make contributions, right? Once you switch plans and your employer gives you an annual election, and now you're moving from the HSA to a plan that is a little bit richer in benefits, it has a doctor copay and a drug card, you can no longer from that point on make a contribution. Now that account, you still have access to those funds and you can still withdraw money tax-free for any unreimbursed medical. You just can't make future contributions. Another individual that has to stop making contributions can no longer is when you enroll in any parts of Medicare A or B. So if you stay enrolled in a high deductible health plan and you want to, beyond the age 65, still make contributions, don't enroll in Medicare, any parts A or B. And we talked about the limits. There are annual limits, how much you can contribute every year. The IRS publishes a guideline for 2025. An individual can contribute $4,300. A family or 2 or more can contribute $8,550, and then next year it goes up a little bit. So for 2026, an individual is $4,400 and a family is $8,750. Now, if you are 55 or over, there is a catch-up rule, right? You can contribute an extra on top of the other contribution, $1,000. And I would encourage you to do that because you want to build up that account, because even after you can no longer make contribution, you can continue to take money out for any unreimbursed medical expenses. It will always be tax-free. So that's good news. And once you turn age 65, and or become eligible, let's say no longer participate, retire, leave the company, and now you're enrolled in Medicare, you can use the money in your HSA bank account for Medicare premiums. That's pretty good because there is a premium for Medicare Part B. Now, one thing I will say about withdrawals, if you make a withdrawal that is not an eligible medical expense that's on the IRS published list or some of the things we went over, you will be subject to taxes and a 10% penalty. So you're going to be fined. So don't do that, because if you're in a 30% tax bracket, you're losing 40% of your money. Not worth it. Oh, by the way, after 65, if you take the money out and you use it for something other than medical, let's say you take your grandkids to Disney, for example, you will pay taxes, but you won't pay that 10% penalty. But you know, the purpose of an HSA health savings account is to save money for medical expenses, which I'm sure you'll have well after age 65. So I don't encourage you to spend it on a Disney vacation. But last but not least, very, 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 very important. I shouldn't save this for last. Save all your receipts. File them with your taxes. You need proof that the money you took out was for an eligible medical expense. The onus is on you. If the IRS decides to audit you, and oh, by the way, I've been audited twice because I have an HSA bank account and making contributions and took a lot of money out, and they said, this isn't eligible from a couple, 2-3 years ago. And oh, by the way, we're going to fine and penalize you. And I said, wait a second. So I went back to my tax returns, got out all my receipts. I have a little folder from eligible expenses that I removed from the HSA bank account, sent it in, the fine went away. They tore it up and said, okay, you're good. So you need to keep your receipts from money you take out of your HSA bank account. Make sure it's qualified. So hopefully you found this video helpful. What is an HSA? We hope you have a little bit more knowledge today. And until next time, this is Kathy Bukowski, the owner of CB Health Insurance. Thank you for watching.